This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, BYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, I should say, after the weekend. So now look, that sniffling, by the way, in that sound, whatever, that compilation of Donald Trump being an idiot, boy, does that take on new meaning today. So yes, a lot of you, of course, or some of you, I'm not sure how many of you are probably shut in, maybe practicing social distancing, thanks to coronavirus. Look, it's kind of interesting. For me, this is normal, right? I'm not saying that what's going on, with coronavirus, et cetera, and all these people, getting sick and at risk of death, et cetera. But social distancing, I am very much used to social distancing, basically because of what I do. And look, our schedule really hasn't changed any much. My family, my wife and I, she works in an AFC home, so come hell or high water, you got to go to work. And so there's no quarantine for her. There's no social distancing for her, and of course, I distance myself. But look, those of you who are watching in Michigan, that's where I'm based. Governor Whitmer, she had just announced that, hey, look, bars, restaurants, they're going to be closing for the duration of this. So, look, I don't normally go to bars anyway. They said takeout is okay, delivery is okay. So there's an update, and I think as far as confirmed cases here in Michigan, 53 so far. And so, all right. So that's what's happening in our state. And I'm sure it's, of course, every other state is reacting to coronavirus differently. And so all I want to do is just make sure to wish you guys that, to make sure you're safe, first and foremost, and that, we find ways to help you guys. Because look, I've already seen a couple of people in the chat, or at least one in the chat, that's like, "Hey, look, my wife's place or girlfriend's place of employment is closing. We're not going to have any money coming in." I mean, these are significant dangers, right? Now, I don't know how many of you watched the Democratic debate last night, but one thing that really kind of struck me is how Joe Biden came out and said, you're not going to pay. We're going to help you. We're going to do all this stuff, but it's only on a temporary basis. But we're going to make sure that you're not left out by yourself. Whereas literally Joe Biden's campaign has been based on, we're still going to leave you out. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. But look, again, I don't know how many of you watched the debate. I did, of course. And it pretty much went beyond winners and losers, I think, because At this point, you've already chosen who you're going to support. And really, it's all about making your case, right? I think Bernie Sanders, as usual, makes a good case, and I agree with him. And so I think generally, who you thought won is who you thought made a stronger case for their own side. So now some of you, well, maybe not some of you, but there are people out there, of course, that are like, oh, Biden won because he looked presidential. Okay, well, he didn't crap himself on stage. He didn't walk off the corner, out of the frame. And so, okay, and look, he actually, did put together fairly coherent sentences. That's good, right? And so he didn't show a lot of that mental decline that we've been talking about, which is good. Nonetheless, he did seem a little unprepared for certain questions, like his record on Social Security, for example, and wanted to cut it, and he's lied a lot. And the moderators did not call out those lies, even though they did ask a couple of good questions, even one from a progressive framing. And it was, of course, on the Green New Deal. I mean, they literally said, "Oh, your plan doesn't cost as much as Sanders' plan. So does that mean you're not as committed, or basically not planning to have to spend enough to rise to the challenge?" That was good. That was good. But again, I guess I'm kind of damning with faint praise here, because it is mainstream. It was CNN, and they generally don't ask great questions. And look, I think Bernie Sanders. I think at some points he was aggressive, and that's good. But more aggressive, hit him more on his record, and I thought yesterday we saw some of that. It's too bad he didn't do a lot of that earlier. And so, again, that's just my quick takeaways from the debate. I don't know if it's going to change anybody's mind, and that's like the worst part, right? Because we're already in pretty deep into the process. Is it going to be enough? And I don't think Bernie Sanders really kind of had a defining "I hit you big" moment. And now, look, let's be honest. Challenging him on a Social Security was fantastic, and I really enjoyed that because, let's be honest, Joe Biden has argued to cut for Social Security, and it's on video, and it's easily provable. But the problem is, you have so many people on, that watch CNN, and then they watch the, after debate with the CNN moderators, and they don't bring up that video. They don't say, actually, here's a video of Joe Biden talking on the floor that, about cutting Social Security, about the need to cut Medicare and Social Security. You don't see that at all. That's why Bernie Sanders says, go to the YouTube. Yes, go to the YouTube, because we will actually show you facts. But anyway, again, I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have. Again, a lot of it thanks to the mainstream media, but let's hope. Now, there is another thing too, that another hot topic, right? That people are criticizing Bernie Sanders for, and it's maybe the thought of delaying the primary. I mean, Joy-Ann Reid came out earlier today. It was like, what? What are you talking about, delaying the primary? But think about it. Delaying the primary is not advantageous to Bernie Sanders. People most at risk for coronavirus are elderly and people with immune compromised systems, right? Elderly people break massively towards Joe Biden. Delaying the primary actually would help him, so that, because what we want to do is to make sure that if you go out to the polls, you don't spread this virus around to other people that is dangerous. And so it doesn't make sense to me that how they're like, oh, see, here's what Bernie Sanders wanted to delay the primary. Yeah. I mean, it's better than what Jim Clyburn had said, which he's like, let's shut this whole thing down. And James Carville, let's shut this puppy down. I mean, he's already won. Who are the more undemocratic ones? Yeah, It's pretty ridiculous. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Sushi 22 says, I bet Republicans get affected more by this than the progressives and liberals. Yeah, I would say demographic wise, sure. But there are a lot of older progressives as well and older liberals that are impacted by this as well. And look, just going beyond the obviously the effects of actually getting coronavirus, you also have a lot of industries shutting down. The food industry, for example, a lot of restaurants closing, no more dining in, no more Ubers, a lot of people in the gig economy. So I think it does affect a lot of progressives as well and younger people. So GGW says you should be mad at stupid Trump for giving the stock market $800 billion to help the economy. And you see the numbers now that didn't help. He could have given the money to the people. Well, we are mad about that. Gigi, we absolutely are mad. And that's a great point. Not only that, but again, the Fed giving $1.5 trillion to help the banks. But the federal government, and I know the Federal Reserve and the federal government are not the same thing, but the Trump administration has basically said, yeah, we're not actually really going to help the people all that much. Now, I did see something earlier where Trump says, well, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop student loan interest payments. Oh, okay. Yeah. Great. Not the normal payments, right? Not the principal. We're just going to stop collection of the interest. Yeah. And look, that bill, by the way, there's another bill too that was going through Congress with Nancy Pelosi, pushing it. That only covers about 20% of the workforce when it comes to paid leave. 20%. Where's the other 80? Yeah. So there's that. But okay, anyway. So now we've got a lot of stories here. And there are super chats I want to read as well from you guys. Torn Tokoroa says, Governor Cuomo's done the same here in New York. Still here hoping for Bernie to win. Unfortunately, I'm prepared for otherwise. My hopes have become too shaky. Yeah, look, it just goes back to Kyle Kulinski saying we should always campaign like we're 10 points behind. And I feel like, myself included, got a little too cocky. We thought, okay, look, the centrists are all fragmented. They're all split. And so, oh man, we're going to have an easy time now. Nope. Didn't turn out that way. But yeah, no, that's a good point. By the way, so this is just an aside, and this is just a little bit of a ridiculous point, but I'm going to share it anyway. So I've been washing my hands so much, right? As you're supposed to do, right? So like whenever you go, like what I do is whenever I have to go out into the general public, right? I will do what I got to do. I'll come back home. I'll wash my hands, right? That's smart. I already washed my hands enough. But the added hand washing, now my skin is all dried out on my hands. This is disastrous. This is the worst. I just wanted to share that. All right, anyway. Elwell says, I wanted Bernie to do a fire breath fatality on Biden. I know exactly what you're talking about. Finish him. Fatality. I love it. All right. That would have been great. Bernie rips off the whatever, and it's just the skull. Awesome. All right. Anyway. So on the show today, yes, we do have stories. We've got Trump trying to bribe the German government, or I'm sorry, a German company for an exclusive vaccine. That already is just an insane story. But nonetheless, shows you who Donald Trump is. We've got Norway. Yes, we have a warning from our friends in Norway, and it's disastrous. We also have single payer. What are the experts saying? If Medicare for all would help with the pandemic, I'm pretty sure it would. But let's go to see what the experts actually say about it. And then we've got the stock market. And then switching from coronavirus coverage, of course, we're going to talk about how TikTok is secretly a terrible company. Yeah. Fun times. You know what? I'll check out that Curel, because I literally, like, it feels like my skin is starting to come off. It's pretty bad. Kind of gross. All right, anyway. Moving on. Let's get to the show. It's no surprise President Trump is in a panic over the coronavirus and its effects on the American economy. And not only that, but the world economy. Now, he is desperately trying to do anything he can to show the American people that he is not a complete and utter failure during this disaster, which includes, by the way, doing bribery. Yes, bribery. President Trump, according to a German newspaper, reportedly offered a large sum of money to a German pharmaceutical firm for exclusive rights to a coronavirus vaccine. Now, I know I'm going to basically brutalize and murder this name of these newspapers because I do not speak German, but I'm going to try. Now, it's the newspaper Welt am Sonntag. I don't think I got that right, but they cited an anonymous German official who said the Trump administration offered CureVac $1 billion to grant exclusive rights to the U.S. for a potential coronavirus vaccine. The German official added, Trump wants the vaccine only for the U.S., only for the USA. So wait, you're going to pay a German firm $1 billion only for the United States. Ain't nobody else getting it. No. It's just for us. Okay, I'm going to give you $1 billion and you're going to sell it to us and you sell it to us only. But why? Why? Well, we know the answer. You're going to use it for your own gain. Of course. Now, that is basically evil. Let's just say that. Plain and simple, evil. Now, in the original story, Die Welt said Trump wanted not only to control any new vaccine, but also to make sure it would only be available on a for-profit basis. So in case you think this entire thing was about, no, guys, we got to make sure the vaccine is America first. We're going to give it to all the Americans. We're going to do it for free, and then we're going to go after the other countries. We're going to make them pay their fair share. No, that's definitely not Trump. He didn't say fair share. We're going to make the other countries pay. But no. He wants to make sure that people make a profit off this. Hey, man, it may be an emergency. It's a state of emergency, but we got to make that cheddar. Oh, that's the worst. Oh, that right there is basically the distillation of everything that is wrong, not only with America, but with Donald Trump as a person, as a human being. You've got, and by the way, where's he going to get that money from? That $1 billion of taxpayer money. Oh, right. He gets it from the taxpayers to bribe a German company to get exclusive rights to a vaccine that he's going to allow our corporations to go and sell for a profit. I mean, the robbery, the sheer effing hubris. All I can say on that one. Wow. It's beyond gross. Now, what's interesting here is that this was apparently a one-off, right? So now, the Washington Post reported, citing an anonymous administration official, that no one in the administration knew that he had actually reached out with a bribe. Top White House aides were unaware of any communication by or offer from President Trump to CureVac. The official also cautioned that Trump often has private conversations of which his staff is not aware, and therefore the official could not definitively rule out that any such discussion had occurred. So this is simultaneously, wasn't me. No, we had nothing to do with that. And also, well, I mean, it could have happened, but we don't know. So it's like a cover your ass operation right here. It sounded like. But look, again, Donald Trump apparently doesn't care about the health of the United States. And look, I don't even know if he's going to try to use the America First thing to spin this, but he can't really, because already he's shown that it's not America first, it's corporations first. And we shouldn't at all be surprised. I mean, you guys remember there was this press conference by Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, who talked to Congress last month. And he said, quote, "We would want to make sure that we'd work to make it affordable, but we can't control the price because we need the private sector to invest." The private sector needs to invest. Where Trump is saying, well, we're going to give you a bunch of public money to go and then make sure that we make it exclusive to the United States so that we can make a profit. Wow. So now there are some non-horrible people that have stepped in over in Germany and said, yeah, we're not going to do that. Okay, we don't do that here. In fact, this is Christoph Hedek, chief executive of CureVac's main investor, who told the German newspaper Mannheimer Morgen on Sunday that it has no plans to allow any nation to purchase exclusive rights to a potential coronavirus vaccine. Quote, "We want to develop a vaccine for the whole world and not for individual countries," Hedek said. Look, I shouldn't be surprised at the depravity of this administration. I mean, look, I know here's what we would do, right? Here's what America would do under the Trump administration if we got an exclusive access to the vaccine. We would price gouge other countries. Why? Because that's what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump is that guy who would hoard 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer to then resell it on Amazon. I forget that guy's name, but it's the same kind of person. Or like Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, right? Martin Shkreli basically tried doing the same thing, price gouging people by buying up the rights to Daraprim, right? That's exactly what Donald Trump would do if he had exclusive access to the vaccine. I mean, look, he'd talk about, and how you do, he'd talk about how America's getting screwed by these other countries, right? But everyone, we're getting screwed by China. We're getting screwed by Europe. It's the Chinese that they brought it over here. Again, this entire thing, that entire narrative, of course, is just mired in racism and xenophobia, right? The people calling it the Wuhan, right? The Wuhan virus. Come on. Viruses do not know borders. They do not know countries or nationalities. Viruses are viruses. Simple as that, right? But look, he would use this as a way to get these other countries to pay up. And it's ridiculous, and it's gross, and it's a monstrous worldview. And I'm glad he was rejected. 100%. But look, the virus does not know if you're poor or a member of the elite. And that's why everyone should have a vaccine, not access to the vaccine, right? No, everyone should have a vaccine, and it should not be based on any sort of profit motive. Okay. All right. So let's go to more ridiculousness. And this is actually kind of fun. So. Of course. There we go. the country of Norway just roasted the United States on our healthcare policy. So now, and not just the country of Norway, let's be fair about this. This is actually Norway's renowned University of Science and Technology. So not the government, but a very prestigious institution of learning. Now, they have just issued an alert urging students studying abroad to return home as a response to the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. Sorry. Now, the warning applies especially to students, and I love the framing of this, right? Staying in nations with poorly developed health services, as well as countries with poorly developed collective infrastructures. Can you think of who that applies to? Oh, right, us. They're not talking about Zimbabwe or Venezuela, right? Notice how nobody's talking about Venezuela right now, right? Because literally, those pictures of empty shelves in Venezuela, we could also take pictures here of empty shelves. Because yeah, okay. Anyway, so now look, this college called out America by name. It says, for example, the USA, when they say poorly developed health services and poorly developed collective infrastructure, right? So now it also says it can be difficult in the US to get transport to the airport if you don't have a car. The same applies if you don't have health insurance. And in line with the advice from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I, as NTNU's rector, strongly recommend that all NTNU students who are away outside Norway return home. Norway. Why don't those Norwegians come here to the United States? Why don't they immigrate here? I don't understand why people from Norway wouldn't want to live in the United States. Crazy. Look, this is a pretty open indictment of America's disastrous healthcare system, where millions of Americans are, or the entire country is unprepared for a pandemic. And I know you're thinking, wait a minute. Yeah, well, there's coronavirus is happening in Norway as well. And look at Italy. Look at Italy. Man, you know, they're unprepared too. Well, to be fair, yeah, they were unprepared. Is it the fault of single-payer healthcare? No, without single-payer healthcare, the fallout in Italy would have probably been worse. I mean, right now, yes, Italy had a very slow response to the coronavirus pandemic. You know who also had a slow response? Us. And so here's the thing, right? America, we've got low cases here only because we're not able to fully test our population. South Korea right now has these very efficient drive-through testing centers, right? Where they can test about 20,000 citizens a day. So far, the United States, in a month, way under that. I think the estimates are about 3,000 people in like a month. Why? We don't have the testing kits. And Donald Trump turned down testing kits from the WHO. And so, look, I bet the thinking is, and to be, get a little conspiratorial on this, thinking is, well, if we don't test people, then our numbers don't go up. And it doesn't look so bad here in America. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but wow. That's disastrous, right? Now, the idea that single payer also, by the way, is the only tool to stop outbreaks is ridiculous. No, nobody who supports single payer actually believes that. We just believe that, hey, if you make healthcare a universal right, and make sure that people are able to get to a doctor when they're sick or go to a hospital when they start to feel symptoms in order to get tested without cost, that's actually more effective than having a system where coronavirus tests can cost up to about $1,600 if you're uninsured, or $400 to $500 if you're, if even if you have insurance, and that's assuming that they waive copays and deductibles for testing, which has been an idea that has been talked about. And so, again, we're not. Actually, I do believe that the Trump administration has gotten health insurance companies to waive the testing fees, but not, in the copays and deductibles for testing, but for treatment. I mean, you're kind of SOL on that, right? And so that's what's going on here in our country, and that's why it's a disaster. Our system has experienced multiple failures alongside with the administration's painfully slow response. So, as Dr. Fauci says, it's going to get worse here before it gets better. And that is partly due to our healthcare system, and again, partly due to the incompetence of the current administration. So now back to Norway, right? So Norway. Here's how some people on social media responded to the Norwegian university's directive. Andre says, remember when Trump asked why America couldn't pull more immigrants from countries like Norway? Now we know. Because Norway considers America to be a, quote, shithole country. Where's the lie, right? I love this country. I do love America, but boy, we got major problems. And you know what? Part of loving your country is actually trying to make it better and trying to help it, work for everybody who lives here. And look, a lot of the problems that we have are primarily caused by greed. And let's be honest. Jeremy Clemens says, damn, Norway. And Mahesh Murthy says, what Norway is telling its students, if you're in a third world country like the U.S., return home. Oh, all of these are absolutely devastating. And then finally, the best one here, Caitlin says, please stop roasting us, Norway. We can't afford the copay for the burn ward. Devastating. Norway 1, America 0. All right. Moving on here. So this next segment, I'm going to be talking about the arguments for single payer during a pandemic crisis. So let's move into that. Now, as the discussion around how to respond to the coronavirus coincides with the Democratic primary between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, who both have very different ideas on how to actually do healthcare in this country, public health experts are now making a case that countries with universal single-payer healthcare systems are better suited to respond not only more effectively but efficiently to outbreaks than other systems, for example, our own. Now, according to the Washington Post, experts are saying that while it is too soon to see definite outcomes among competing healthcare systems, even in this early phase, they say that single-payer state-run systems are proving themselves relatively robust. Unlike the United States, where a top health official told Congress that the rollout of testing was failing, and where Congress is now only moving through a bill that includes free testing, the single-payer countries have been especially nimble at making free or low-cost virus screening widely available for patients with coughs and fevers. Countries with forms of single-payer, they also write, like South Korea and Denmark, have for weeks been offering drive-through testing and other innovative mechanisms, allowing them to quickly test hundreds of thousands of their citizens to respond accordingly. South Korea, for example, has been testing anywhere from 10 to 20,000 people a day. In America, we've unfortunately done just about a fraction of that. And a lot of it is because we don't have testing kits. The president refused to get testing kits from the World Health Organization. And so, we don't have the ability to test high numbers of people. And not only that, but a lot of people actually can't afford to get tested. For example, people with insurance can somewhere cost 500 to 600 or at least upwards of $200 to get tested. That's with insurance, and that's assuming that deductibles are waived, which we don't know will be the case. But if you're uninsured, it can cost up to $1,600 to get tested. In a country where 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency, can we really even afford to get tested? I mean, look, on the other hand, can we afford to not be tested? And that really here is the situation with American healthcare systems, right? So now, let me go to the situation here in South Korea. I mentioned them, right? Now, their response says, and this is from Choi Jae-wook. I don't know if I said his name right, who's a professor of preventative medicine at Korea University in Seoul, says, quote, unhampered government intervention into the healthcare sector is an advantage when the virus is spreading fast across the country. So that's one expert, right? So already you have somebody in, a country that is efficiently testing people and has a single payer healthcare system. So let's get to more experts, right? So Denmark is another country that was named in this, that was doing testing. And let's go to Jørgen Kritsals, the head of the University of Copenhagen Medical School, told the Post that the strength of Denmark's single-payer system is that it has, quote, a lot of really highly educated and well-trained staff, and given some quite undetailed instructions, they can actually develop plans for an extremely rapid response. So it's not just about being able to go to the doctor. It's also about coming up with a rapid response plan instead of having to go to insurance companies, the CEOs, as Trump has been doing, meeting with them to try to figure out how we're going to get, all these people tested and how much it's going to cost for people, having them come up with the formulas of how much to charge those or waive deductibles, et cetera, et cetera. It's really complicated here in America, but in Denmark and South Korea, since they only have one major insurer, the government, it's actually a lot more simple for them to get together, people to get together and figure out how to have a response to this. So now, even then, right? Let's see. Kurtzall adds, we don't have to worry too much about whether this response or that response demands specific payments here and there, as I had just mentioned, right? Just talked about. Now, he also says, we're aware that there will be huge expenditure within the system, but we're not too concerned about it because we have a direct line of communication from the national government to the regional government to the hospital directors. And so again, you've got those open lines of communication. You don't have, like we said, like we have a multi-payer system where you have to contact 20 different insurance companies in one area. That's not to say that though there aren't issues in countries of single payer. We're dealing with a pandemic. You've got issues of bed shortages, staff shortages, supply, all that. But then again, that's only a situation you're going to see with any pandemic. You're going to have massive stress on the system with something like coronavirus. That's just what happens. What's going on in America, though, is basically showing when something like this meets a system that's already broken, that can't really be stressed anymore because it's already fractured into a million pieces. And so what happens in that situation? Well, we're about to find out. And I have a feeling that it's not going to be good. More experts here. David Fisman, an epidemiologist at the University of Toronto, says that in a time of crisis like the coronavirus pandemic, having a healthcare system that's a public strategic asset rather than a business run for profit allows for a degree of coordination and optimal use of resources. Dr. David Himmelstein, co-founder of Physicians for a National Health Program at the Distinguished Professor of Public Health at the University of New York at Hunter College, said in a statement that the fragmented system in the United States leaves public health separate and disconnected from medical care and provides no mechanism to appropriately balance funding priorities. As a result, public health accounts for less than 3% of all overall health expenditures, a percentage that has been falling for decades and is about half the proportion in Canada or the UK. One result is that the state and local health departments that are in the front lines dealing with epidemics have lost 50,000 positions since 2008 due to budget cuts. So all of that stuff, all of those experts are 100% correct. Our system is inefficient, costly, and dangerous. It is a disaster. Now, look, we're going to get through coronavirus, right? Of course. There are now emergency measures being put into place. This is a national emergency. We're going to figure things out. But understand, right, that this system, our system in America, can only deal with things in a positive way if there's a national emergency. The problem is that the response to at least this coronavirus epidemic or pandemic was really slow in declaring national emergency in order to get help to people who's needed. And right now, we're already struggling and failing to do so, to get it to that level. What's going to happen with coronavirus 20, coronavirus 2021, or whatever new disease gets unearthed by the melting glaciers in Antarctica? Because you know it's going to happen with climate change, right? So what's going to happen? Our system is going to continue, since it's broken, continue leading us in a national emergency after national emergency without that infrastructure in place to take care of the basic needs of the people. And that's not even counting the fact that 68,000 people still die without health insurance in this country, even with the absence of a pandemic. And so I know a lot of people are worried about going to the doctor, right? But here's the thing. Millions of people are already worried about going to the doctor. Those who can't afford high copays and deductibles, right? And those who don't have insurance in the first place. Now, other people who do have insurance are thinking, boy, I can't go to the doctor. I mean, I don't know if I should get tested for coronavirus. I had a cough earlier. Oh no, right? I can't afford to do it. People with insurance, with decent jobs and supposedly decent insurance, not to mention all the people with junk plans, they're basically lumped in with the uninsured because those plans don't cover anything. And a lot of people I think are going to learn the hard way about those junk plans. And so that already, I mean, this entire situation is just laying bare the disaster that is our healthcare system that is run for profit. And so, I mean, even without this national emergency, it was still an emergency. It just wasn't called that. It just wasn't given attention by Washington. And the thing that struck me, since there was a debate last night, is how Joe Biden had basically laid out the case for universal single-payer healthcare by hearkening to this emergency and saying, we're going to do all that stuff that is involved with the single-payer healthcare, but only temporarily. So once this thing is over, then you're back to being on your own. You have cancer, well, that's your emergency. You have, diabetes, that's your emergency. Can't afford your insulin, that's your emergency. But hey, if you have coronavirus, that's an emergency. I don't see those things as different. I see them all as one and the same. A personal emergency in healthcare is a national emergency in healthcare. And the fact that we don't have Medicare for all, I think, is the national emergency. And we got to do something about it. Okay. Chris Green, by the way, points out something very, very true. Says, no, how are you going to pay for it for the banks? Oh, I noticed that as well. So that's an excellent comment. Couple of super chats before we get into the next show or next segment here. David, Platypi says, from a TikToker, it was no secret. We knew that they're terrible. Yes, since I don't do TikTok, I had no idea. So this is like old person explains Zoomer platform. So bear with me on that one. David Richardson says, don't forget that Pelosi effectively endorsed this when she said, let's make the vaccine affordable. The establishment needs to get thrown into the fire along with the administration. Look, Pelosi, as I mentioned before, more incrementalism, neoliberal 101 in their response to this. It's terrible. Okay. Torn Tukaro again says Matt Colvin is the guy who tried the hand sanitizer scam. That's right. After the state's attorney general put a price gouging probe, he's donating them on a site. Yeah. Well, of course. What else do you have to do? And then Starcheck says Trump tried to hide the number of infected Americans to help his campaign. He's allowing the virus to spread while calling it a Democrat hoax. Fool. Yeah. I can't disagree with any of that. All right, so let me give you a quick update to the campaign here that we're doing to raise a few $100 to pay the bills as we do on the show. $340. You guys are amazing. So that happened over the weekend. $340. Thank you to everybody who's donated. Again, you guys, your generosity is just amazing, and I love you all. All right. So then before we get into the next segment here, I do want to thank some patrons while I'm on this. I want to thank Earl Rosk and Philip Wilkinson. All right. So there's that. Channel members as well. Vincent Massey and Fayellen Schwarzentrop. So I'm on those words today. I'm doing good. Must have been the fact that I was listening to the record player last night, and it helped me to know the words. Because that's what you do. All right. Thank you all, by the way. If you want to be a channel member, you can click the join button below, or patreon.com/Q18Nation. There's a link in the description, too, if you want to hit the fundraiser. All right. Go to the stonks. Stonk market. The Federal Reserve has officially exhausted all of its ammunition to preserve the markets by literally zeroing out its rates, its interest rates, and buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of bonds. Now, what is the effect of all of this? Nothing. Stocks fell again this morning. So now the Dow Jones Industrial Average cratered about 2,442 points, falling more than 10% shortly before 10 a.m. on Monday. The S&P fell about 9.8%, which triggered a 15-minute pause in trading that occurs whenever the index falls at least 7% after the opening bell. The NASDAQ composite also sunk about 9.6%. So understand that all of these are very bad, right? Low numbers bad for the stock market. And what it is that we've been seeing stocks fall so fast in the mornings. As soon as the opening trading bell is open, that they have something built into it called a circuit breaker, right? And you know what a circuit breaker does is that when there's too much voltage, shuts off to prevent the whole thing from blowing up. Well, that's what's happening with the stock market. That circuit breaker keeps getting triggered because the markets are in a panic. Now, Wall Street, by the way, was expected to open with steep losses after the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to 0%. So, I mean, look, I saw that this was going to happen. Like, there literally wasn't any more that you could cut off the interest rates, right? So now, no interest, right? 0%. Not only that, but $700 billion in bonds were bought following the emergency Sunday meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee, the central bank's monetary policy arm. So understand, right? So now interest rates are at nothing, and we've got this massive bond buy, right? Still, gigantic losses. Now, whether this prevented even bigger losses, I'm not entirely sure. But what I am sure of is that the Federal Reserve can basically do no more when it comes to interest rate cuts. They can't. You can't cut beyond zero, right? So that's it. You got no more ammunition on that unless they decide to print money and inject it into the stock market, which they've already been doing. About $1.5 trillion got injected into stocks last week with very little impact. So this is bad. This is bad. So now Monday's sell-off, according to The Hill, and the major Fed intervention that spurred it are the latest flash of deep anxiety within financial markets as we look towards going into a recession. So look, I've talked about recession happening for a while. This is not a situation where this massive panic is the cause of it. In reality, we had corporations for a long time, thanks to low interest rates, that were over leveraged. They had too much debt. And we also had the market being overinflated because of stock buybacks. And really, all it needed was an emergency to push everything over the edge. And, oh, look, we just went over the edge. Great. Now, the problem, of course, is that there's a lot of people that cannot work because their employers are shutting down due to health concerns, right? So now people are being told to, do some social distancing, quarantine yourself, right? If you start to feel sick. And so you have situations where people can't go to work. Now, there are, of course, people still working. Obviously, there's still places that are open. But a lot of sit-down restaurants, they're closed. You have a lot of bars that have closed. You have public events that have been canceled. Major retail chains have closed or restricted hours. Professional sports leagues like, for example, baseball, right? They have suspended their seasons, and theaters, music venues, and film festivals are also closed, canceled, postponed events because of what's going on. I said baseball, but look, I'm not a sports guy. So I probably got that wrong. Nonetheless, you have sports that have shut down and a lot of places that have shut down. And then, of course, you have travel, which has been restricted. That puts a huge strain on the economy, hotels, obviously airlines. In fact, I think the major airlines are calling for a $50 billion bailout from the government to survive this. And so what happens when you have a government, or not a government, but an economy that is based on consumer spending? And then nobody can actually spend in the economy. Everybody's staying home. Well, it's not good. It's not good at all. Now, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell did say on Monday, quote, "Families, businesses, schools, organizations, and governments at all levels are taking steps to protect people's health. These measures, which are essential for containing the outbreak, will nonetheless understandably take a toll on economic activity in the near term. Along with its cutting its baseline interest rate range to 0%, the Federal announced also that it would purchase about $500 billion in Treasury bonds and $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities to stabilize the financial markets. Again, adding into the $1.5 trillion injection into the markets. But again, we don't know what kind of effect it's going to be, what it's going to have on the market. So while the Federal Reserve has put a lot of money into the stock markets, and the government has put money into shale companies, we have not seen a regular bailout we haven't seen a bailout for regular working people. I mean, the House bill that is currently being debated, working its way through Congress, only requires 20% of workers getting sick leave. Only covers 20%. Big employers like McDonald's and Amazon are not required to provide any paid sick leave, while companies fewer than 50 employees can seek hardship exemptions from the Trump administration. I'm actually okay with some of the hardship exemptions, but why is Amazon and McDonald's not required to pay for sick leave. Why? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So now that legislation does provide some compensation for workers who need to take longer leaves under the FMLA, Family Leave Act, but is excluded for big corporations. Why? Why? What's the point? What's the point of the bill? And I know these Republicans are like, well, we don't want you to have any leave. Oh, well, thanks. Appreciate that. Just, allow people to get sick and then get other people sick. And then now nobody can go to work. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And look, there's more problems beyond just paid sick leave, by the way. People have mortgages and rents that they can't get paid for, being laid off. People need to buy food and supplies. And I don't mean hand sanitizer and toilet paper. I mean actual food, right? So the administration is doing a terrible job. Like, you could actually at least stabilize some of the markets by not just helping out Wall Street, but helping regular people continue to buy things and participate in the market, even in the limited capacity that we can. And, things like online purchases obviously are very helpful, and maintaining proper social distancing and hand washing and things like that, and still being able to participate in some commerce, but also giving relief to those who can't go to work by waiving things like student loans, by waiving things like mortgage payments and utilities until this situation gets under control. And by God, making sure that everybody who can get tested for free and also treated for free. No co-pays, deductibles, or anything like that. That's the way to weather the crisis. And unfortunately, the administration is not going in that direction. And that is another reason we're going to see the markets continue to tank. Whether this ends up into a full-blown depression, I have no idea. I hope it doesn't. But from the way that it's looking, it is not good. Okay. All right. One more here. And by the way, I'm sniffling a lot. I don't have the coronas, right? I must have seasonal allergies. Probably. We'll see. All right, anyway. Video platform TikTok is under fire once again for discriminating against users who are deemed unattractive or poor. So this was revealed by internal documents obtained by The Intercept. Now, these documents, which were very extensive, regarded internal moderation about what is acceptable on this platform that has millions of users, hundreds of millions of users. Now, these documents are also a devastating indictment of how the company operates. So now let's get into the report, into the details, right? And it's a very detailed report, and I'm just going to focus on one aspect of it, but there are also other disastrous aspects to it. So I urge you to read the full report. Now, one moderation document outlining physical features, bodily and environmental, deemed too unattractive, spells out a litany of flaws that could be grounds for invisibly barring a given clip for the For You section of the app, where TikTok videos are funneled to a vast audience based on secret criteria. Now, nobody knows what it takes to earn a spot for the For You section. And that's a lot like, of course, the YouTube algorithms, to make that comparison, right? I don't know what brings us into the algorithm. I mean, I know some of the stuff that keeps us out of the algorithm, but what gets you into it and what gets you trending, nobody really knows. So it kind of brings to light the fact that we have these algorithms and we have these moderation tools being used by these companies to screen videos and users and content from being served up in this case, For You or what's hot or any of these other designations on these platforms, right? So now the document reveals that it takes very little to be excluded from this based on the argument that uploads by unattractive, poor, or otherwise undesirable users could, quote, decrease the short-term user retention rate. So, fun. The document stresses for videos to which the user is basically the only focus of the video. If the character's appearance or the shooting environment is not good, the video will be much less attractive, not worth to be recommended to new users. Under the policy, TikTok moderators were explicitly told to suppress uploads from users with flaws both congenital and inevitable, meaning if you're older, right? The shooting environment is not good. The video, sorry about that. The abnormal body shape, ugly facial looks, dwarfism, and obvious beer belly, too many wrinkles, eye disorders, and many of those other low quality traits are enough to keep uploads out of the algorithmic fire hose. As I mentioned before, these algorithms are stacked against people who are not model material, essentially, right? Videos, and it also has a poor bias. Videos in which the shooting environment is shabby and dilapidated, including but not limited to slums, rural fields, and dilapidated housing, were also systematically hidden from new users, though there is one exception. Rural, beautiful, natural scenery could be exempt, but no rural areas, but unless they're pretty. Unless they're pretty. How magnanimous of them. Appreciate that little exemption. There's more. The document, presented to both English and Chinese, because it is a Chinese company, advised TikTok's moderators to look for videos, for videos shot in someone's house, has to be no slummy character. Special care should be given to check for slummy features such as cracks in walls, old and disreputable decorations, the mere appearance of residential disrepair, or crooked teeth in the frame. The document shows could mean the difference between worldwide distribution and relative invisibility. Now, in America, that is the special prescient, right? Because here in America, we treat teeth as luxury bones, cosmetic luxury bones, right? So it's very likely to have users in America that have crooked teeth because, well, they can't afford to get dental care. I mean, a visit to the dentist office costs thousands of dollars. And so there goes a lot of people, a ton of people. Basically, if you're not perfect, if you're poor at all, overweight, have any visible medical issue, you are relegated to invisibility. And not only that, but they've also discriminated against in the past and gotten in trouble for it. Disabled, LGBT, and others, and other groups. So, it doesn't even matter how good or original your content is, right? If you're not pretty, F off. All we're in it is for pretty people, because that draws more people to our platform, and we end up making more revenue. And that's what it is. And that is, and now consider their justification for this, right? Because they basically give it away. They admit it. TikTok should retain an aspirational air to attract and hold on to new users. This kind of environment is not that suitable for new users for being less fancy and appealing. So basically, they want to grow their user base. And in order to do that, they suppress poor people, people with any sort of physical flaw, whether they be, overweight, obviously, disabled or old, at all. They will suppress you. Now, the message it sends is, hey, TikTok users, you're good enough to use the platform, but not good enough to be on it if you are not perfect, right? That's the message. Hey, we need more users of people to actually watch the content, but if you're ugly, you can't be on the content. No uggos applied. Or uggos need not apply, right? Which I would not make it on TikTok. Not that I wanted to. But seriously, I'm pretty sure baldness is one of those things that doesn't get viewed very well by moderators. I'm just saying. But now The Intercept notes that it's unclear how widespread this exclusionary practice is. A TikTok spokesperson told The Intercept that the policies mentioned appear to be the same or similar to those published by German publication Netzpolitik in a December story about how TikTok was artificially suppressing access to videos created by the disabled, overweight, and LGBT users and represented an effort at, quote, prevented bullying, but are no longer in place and were already out of use when The Intercept detained them. Oh, no, see, here's what we were trying to do. We were just trying to protect people from bullying by artificially limiting their reach. I mean, because if nobody sees it, nobody's going to bully you. Huh? See? Right. And then we don't have to look at those dirty pores. I mean, come on. We're not the bad guys. And no, it's our other users, the ones that bully people. Those are the bad guys, right? Now, obviously, that's full of crap. Documents reviewed by The Intercept include a range of policies beyond those reported by Netzpolitik, involving, among other things, the suppression of content from poor, old, and ugly users. Furthermore, the documents contain no mention of any anti-bullying rationale, instead explicitly citing the entirely different justification, the need to retain new users and grow the app, of course, because you've got to make profit. It's all about the money. All about the money. Now, one more thing here. And that's, I think this is relevant because of this is the way that these large platforms work. YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all these different large, huge platforms with hundreds of millions of users, right? They all do this. TikTok conducted closed-door outreach to popular users. One TikTok moderation source told The Intercept operators that spoke directly with influencers and official content creators always make video conferences with groups to pass safety rules, thus reducing the chances of creating videos that go against what ByteDance, the company that owns it, thinks is right, the source told them. So these video conferences, they explain, is between operators, people within the safety team, and TikTok influencers. And what they do is provide advanced warning of changes to the content policies, helping ensure that these top creators do not run afoul of any rules or prohibitions rolled out on the platform. Hey guys, we're going to give you a heads up to make sure that, these new rules don't impact you whatsoever, that you're already aware, right? So you can make the necessary changes before anybody else. Well, that is picking winners and losers right there. And so, garbage. It's complete and total garbage. Everyone else gets left in the dust. And that's even if you're lucky enough to be featured, which, again, if you're poor, ugly, overweight, disabled, LGBT, you are likely to not be featured on TikTok. And I'd also have to say, probably a lot of these other platforms as well, but maybe not to the extent. So, look, it's disastrous, right? And it just proves, again, that there's really no even playing field online because you're dealing with private for-profit corporations. And if gaining a profit means suppressing your user base and their creativity in order to get it, well, that's exactly what they're going to do. And we have nothing that we can do about it. Okay. Anyway, so that's a disaster story. All right. Well, that's it, though. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Thank you again for the super chats. Thank you to the members. Thank you to the patrons. You guys help make this show. You're the reason that it exists, basically. I could not do this without you. So thank you. I love you guys. remember, please stay safe, right? Limit the social interaction if you have to, or if you have to go out, please be careful. As always, practice safety, measures from the CDC, all that wonderful stuff. And please join me tomorrow for another show, and continue to support independent progressive media. Also, remember, we love you guys, and change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you later.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
Why, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.